Broadcasting from the home of the University of Tennessee Volunteers, we are Volunteer Radio, WUTK 90.3 FM in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Rock Solid Sports is sponsored by Fieldhouse Social, 2525 University Commons Way, fieldhousesocial.com.
Oh my God, the invasion is coming.
It's football time in Tennessee.
The kick is up. The kick is good. No, it is no good.
Dobbs drops back, looks, loads up, fires long for the end zone. The pass is going to be caught by Tennessee. Win! Got it by Tennessee. Jawan Jennings.
Jackson left corner. Got it. Jackson drops a bomb on him.
I don't know about y'all, but I want to win a national championship.
Nard on the drive. Steps back 15. Pudge's got it. Nard hits the bucket.
Dobbs hit as he lets it go. Man open. Caught. He's down the sidelines. It's Jawan Jennings. Touchdown, Tennessee. Get you some of that, Jalen Taylor.
Huff wants to go one-on-one. Pulls up from 17 and nails it. Just took him. Bunny. Evans has an open three and he hits. Bunny.
Now is the time that you step up and play Tennessee football. When Tennessee plays its best football, it can play with anybody in the country.
This will be Manning. Back to throw. Across the middle. Pass complete. 15, 10, 5. What did he do? All he did was score. Joey Kent. Touchdown on play number 1.
Welcome in to the home field advantage for all things Big Orange Athletics. Rock Solid Sports on 90.3 WUTK. Here's tonight's host.
And welcome into Rock Solid Sports this Monday afternoon. Thanks so much for tuning in to Volunteer Radio 90.2 The Rock. I'm Gus Tomazelli hosting tonight's show. Along with me doing the show is Nick Hill from Chattanooga, Tennessee. How's it going, Nick?
I'm doing very well, Gus. Just glad to be back on the airwaves today.
Of course, and we're very honored to have a special guest in our studio today, Fulton High School football head coach and now a Hall of Famer, Rob Black. How's it going, Rob?
Doing great. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And let me start asking you, we're talking before coming in the air about the challenges you as a head coach, to prepare your team for the upcoming 2020 Tennessee high school football season, with all the guidelines, with all the challenges. You're in the call today with other Tennessee high school football coach, with their challenges as well, with to prepare the team to the schools to the football season. So tell us more about these challenges, how you've been preparing and managing your team.
We're in a different time right now, something that I don't know that there's any football coaches out there that prepared for this. We were expecting to go through our winter and spring sessions of conditioning and weightlifting, and then the summer starts and you continue that and start some football stuff. And instead of that happening, we were 2.5 months of not seeing our kids at all, and didn't know if we were going to. In fact, at one point in time, I think all of us thought it would at least be the second week of July before we saw them. So, fortunately, we were able to get back with our guys a couple of weeks ago. And of course, we have a ton of guidelines that we have to follow. Obviously, trying to stay safe, keep our kids safe, and that's the number one thing right now. And but as far as motivation goes, it hasn't been very tough on me because our guys were ready to get back to work.
Nick Hill from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Any questions?
Oh, yeah. So, obviously, you guys are having to follow really strict guidelines in order to be able to work with your players. Just what are, some of the main differences, in your opinion, from a normal, workout period and normal, practice period that you usually have during the summer to what's going on right now? And just how much more difficult does this pandemic make it to, prepare your football team for the season this fall?
Well, I think the big thing right now is everybody wants to have their whole team together at one time, and start building that team concept. And obviously that's not possible right now. We're having to group our guys a little bit, and have a group at this time doing these things and another group somewhere else and another group somewhere else. And so just keeping the small groups together. And then, for me, it's a lot of documentation, a lot of putting guys in groups and trying to keep them in the same groups every day so that if something does happen, we can kind of track back and know who those guys have been in contact if they do get sick. So again, I would love to have every player on my team doing the same thing together every day right now, and be able to go against each other and against other people. But we can't do that right now. But like I was telling Gustavo earlier, we at least get to do something now. And I know he mentioned I was on a Zoom call with some coaches from all across the state, from Memphis all the way to Upper East Tennessee, and everybody's got their own challenges right now, and every school system is different right now. So I know some of the guys in Memphis and Nashville areas were talking on, they haven't even seen their kids yet, and I've at least seen mine now for, I guess, 11 different times. So, I feel pretty fortunate that I've been able to get back with them, but I feel for some of those other guys because I know they want to be with their teams, and I know their teams want to get together.
And speaking of developing, the team, which, the offense, defense, special team, you were able to have more time or more, chance to develop any practice?
Yeah, we miss spring practice. We usually do that early to mid-May, and so, we were supposed to get 12 days of being out on the field as a team practicing football, and that didn't happen. So we almost feel like we're behind a little bit, So, we're about 2 hours a day right now. A lot of it is strength and conditioning, just trying to catch back up to the things that we lost the previous 2.5 months. And, our plan, I guess, when we come back, we've got a dead period coming up this next week. So we'll have 2 weeks in a row, which is a dead period for everybody across the state. So nobody will be with their teams again for 2 weeks. So, when you come back from that, you almost have to jump straight into football.
Nick?
Curious, what, if any, discussions have you had with your school's administration, Knox County Schools, and TSSAA about contingency plans for this upcoming season in case there's a resurgence of this virus and games potentially have to be postponed or canceled? And additionally, what about the other exterior organizations that relate to football games, like the high school band or cheerleaders, and their potential involvement in games this season?
That's really a good question, a question that's probably asked to me several times a day. We really, and I tell everybody this, I've got a million questions and not a whole lot of answers. And I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen, as far as resurgence and so forth. I can tell you the TSSAA stance as of right now is there's a TSSAA calendar that tells you when you can work out, when you can lift, when you can actually start official practice, when your games are, all that kind of stuff. And then it also tells you when your dead period is. Now, they're not changing their calendar. As of right now, they're going to leave their calendar just as it is, and then I guess make adjustments, when the time comes. And so basically what they're doing is leaving it up to every individual school system as far as, what are you allowing your teams to do right now. So like I said, Memphis, they haven't even been together yet. Some of the private schools have some different things than the public schools, and then Knox County is a little bit different than Maryville City and so forth. So everybody's got their own little guidelines that they're going by right now. So I think everybody is hoping for and planning for a regular football season, but, in the back of our mind, you're a little bit worried about it right now. And so, what comes down the road, we don't know.
And of course, you have a lot of those challenges, but, recently you've been awarded into the Greater Knoxville Hall of Fame, following the footsteps of your father as well. How honored you felt when you were announced into the Greater Knoxville Hall of Fame? Well,
obviously very honored and humbled by that selection. And, I've told so many people this, and I truly believe this. I mean, I have been fortunate to have really good players and been fortunate to have really good mentors and fortunate to have the opportunity to work with so many good people, administrators, coaches, and, support people. So I truly share that honor with everybody that's ever been associated with our program, and not for a second can take all the credit for it. That's for sure.
Yeah, so as a coach at Fulton High School, you have 3 state championships as an offensive coordinator and 3 state championships as a head coach. What did you learn from those championship teams that helped you, as a coach moving forward? Because obviously it's a lot of state championships, to win at one program. And just what are some of the things you took away from those teams?
Well, that every team is different, and so, high school football is a little bit different than college football. In college football, a staff or a coach can look down the road a little bit and say, okay, and this year we're going to lose, 5 offensive linemen, a quarterback, 3 receivers, 2 linebackers, and so those are our needs. That's what we have to replace, and at the high school level, for us, it's not like that. I mean, we just have to take what we get, and so whoever shows up at our place to play, that's what we have to get. So every team is different, and so you may see a year where, you run it, 70% of the time and throw it 30% of the time. And then, 2 years later, you might throw it 70% of the time and run it 30% of the time, depending on your strengths and your weaknesses and your quarterback and your, offensive line and so forth. So, every team is different, and every team that's won a state championship at Fulton High School has been different. And I think that's what we've done a pretty good job of is, figuring out what the strengths of our team are and then kind of building on those.
And speaking of those challenges, last season you had a really tough season because you lost 22 seniors. You ended up going to the first round, ended up being eliminated. What are the lessons you take from last season, from all the challenges and all the obstacles you guys have to overcome?
Well, a lot of lessons. And I tell our guys all the time, I mean, we are a target for everybody. And, when you have a little success and you win a few state championships and are thought of as a pretty good program, then, you're pretty high on the pecking order of teams that people want to knock off. And so we are one of those teams, and we're going to get everybody's best shot, But I'll tell you what I did learn about that team last year, and that is we struggled from day one. And we knew going in we were going to be very youthful, very inexperienced, a lot of guys that had never played on a Friday night before, and they were starting for us, And so we knew we were going to take some lumps early on. And so as it got, mid-year and a little past, it was fighting for a playoff spot, and we're normally in the playoffs every year. And it's been a long time since we did not make the playoffs. And so I felt like our kids had every chance in the world to quit or give up or throw in the towel, last year. And bottom line is they hunkered down and showed some mental toughness and fought through that and ended up, getting a 3 seed into the playoffs. So I was proud of that group for that. And now because of that, I feel like we've got some experience coming back, some guys that have been battle tested and some guys that have been through adversity and some tough times. So now we bring a little bit more experience back this year.
Well, as we look at your 2020 schedule, are there any games in particular that your team is really excited for and really looking forward to, or are you guys just taking it week by week and not treating any game as more important than the other?
Yeah, I mean, every game's important, and we're dealing with, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, so a win does certain things for certain kids and a loss does certain things to certain kids. So every one of them is important to us. And again, sometimes when you lose, you learn some important lessons, and I think we did that last year. But that's not something that anybody wants to go through. I want to win them all. I want to be 15-0 every year, and I know our guys do too. And so you look back at last year and some of those lessons. I mean, we talk about the word adversity a lot. We were faced with adversity so many times, whether it be injuries or lack of experience or whatever. But when you look at our schedule, I mean, we're in a pretty tough region, and you look at some of the teams in our region, and then you look at our non-conference schedule, which is, Maryville and Central and, several teams like that. We don't have a cupcake schedule, so every week is a dogfight for us.
And you spoke about, always have the winning mentality and, wishing to not have any loss. And you had a period between October 2012 and August 2015. You guys have a 36 winning games, streak. And how special is to have, that longevity of a period not losing any games?
Well, it was very special. And, again, I spoke a while ago of the quality players that we've had there and been fortunate to have there. And going 36 games in a row is kind of unheard of. And so, obviously didn't take that for granted, and you know that streak one day is going to end, but every one of those games were special, and every one of those players that played at that time were special.
A high school coach, it's been around been around your program for the past 30 years, and been around a lot of really good athletes, a lot of really good teams. Obviously, some of your players have gone to play into D1 football and have been highly recruited athletes. I'm just curious, so how has recruiting changed from your side of the equation? Obviously, the college coaches are the ones recruiting, but how do you prepare your players for that process, and how do you interact with these coaches, especially as social media becomes involved in the process and all this other extracurricular things become a part of the recruiting process?
Well, I can tell you in the early 90s, it was nothing like it is today as far as recruiting goes. And, I can remember the days when we're, trying to make films of our players and sending them out to schools, hoping to get them recruited. And, there's no social media and there was no cell phones. And so we were taking VHS tapes and trying to dub certain plays on and make little highlights. And then you go take those and put them in envelopes and send them out to all the different schools that you're trying to get to recruit these certain kids. And that was tough. And now, we do it with a click of a button on a computer, and I can literally select, 100 coaches at a time if I want and hit submit, and they've all got it at the same time, and like you said, you spoke of social media, and that's changed everything. And, but I can tell you from a coaching standpoint, there's a lot of text, email, and phone calls pretty much 12 months out of the year. Now, there are a few dead periods where college coaches can't reach out to a certain player or whatever, but at those times they're reaching out to us as high school coaches. So it's not uncommon to be texting back and forth with a college coach at 11 or 11:30 at night, and it's not uncommon for one of those guys to be hitting you up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So it's pretty busy, but well worth it. Anytime we can, take one of our players and say, here's a high school kid that has had dreams of playing college football for a long time, and maybe in some situations they've never had a person in their family go to college before. So all of a sudden they get a chance to do that, and they get a degree, and that changes the complexity of their whole family for the future. So well worth every minute of every conversation we have with a college coach.
And speaking a little bit off the field, you're a big leadership in a heavily African-American community that dealt with, a lot of things, especially, as Xavier Dobson, he had a big influence, and now other, issues surfacing recently for the African-American community. How you, talk about that with your players, with members of the community? Because I imagine, they look up to you as a leader, and of course they talk to you about those issues.
Yeah, and again, as us, we have to be able to read feelings sometimes of some of our players, and some of them are very open and will come and talk to you about situations or problems or feelings that they have. And then some of them, as a coach, you can just kind of see a change or see a difference. And sometimes maybe you approach them and say, hey, man, what's going on with you? How can I help you? Whatever. And, but, I think the biggest thing is this, and I think we do a good job of this at Fulton is not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. I think our guys understand that we care about them, and we truly love those guys, and they truly do matter to us. And it doesn't matter of a skin color. It doesn't matter if they play very much on a Friday night or not. They can see us caring for them and holding them accountable and loving on them and taking care of them. And I think it's more about walking the walk than it is talking the talk.
And Nick, go ahead.
Obviously, you have a deep passion for coaching high school athletes, and helping them along in a very transformative portion of their life. Is this like a spot where you see yourself staying in the rest of your career in high school football, or do you ever have any desire to move up into the college ranks?
I've thought about that so many times, and I'll just be honest with you. I feel like, and I have always felt this way, or at least for the past, 28 years, I guess, is I'm where I'm supposed to be. I think this is where I can be effective, and, we all want to be good at what we do, and we always want to feel like we're making a contribution. And so for me, this age of kids right now in this day and time and all the different struggles that we go through, I feel good about wearing all the different hats that I wear as a head coach, and that is sometimes being a father figure. It's sometimes being coach. It's sometimes giving some tough love. Sometimes it's just being a friend. Sometimes it's acting as a minister or whatever is required with each individual kid. That's what we do, and I feel good about what we're doing.
And, we spoke about your accomplishments, but do you have any game that you always remember, a special game that was unforgettable, like a game that, it brings you great memories?
Well, I could tell you in 2012, I guess it was Fulton's first time being in the state championship since 1974. And I was the offensive coordinator that year. We were 14-0, playing Memphis Ridgeway in Murfreesboro at MTSU. And we had a really good football team, a very talented football team. And like I said, we were 14-0. Memphis Ridgeway was 14-0. They had a ton of great players on that team, and I remember we got beaten that state championship game 21-14, and we had 5 turnovers that day, which was not like us. In fact, our turnover ratio was a tremendous thing for us that year. I mean, we were in the plus big time, and so we turned it over 5 times and lost. And I just remember the feeling on the bus ride back thinking, man, there was our chance. I mean, that's the best team we've had in a long time, and I don't know if we'll ever get a chance to go back there again. And we lost a lot of guys off of that team, but what I remember is the hurt that the guys that were returning had from that game, and, the opportunity that they felt like they let slip away. And so not many people had a lot of confidence in our next team coming up, and those guys weren't trying to hear that. And we turn around and go back in 2013 and win it, and then go back-to-back in 2014 and win it again. So I guess that win in 2013, when you spent 365 days thinking, man, will we ever get a chance to go back and do this again? And there we were doing it and won it in big fashion.
And it's interesting, because I imagine that loss was so impactful that you guys set a record in scoring offense and scoring defense during the 2013 campaign. So I imagine those mistakes maybe, made you guys stronger to, put those records even.
Well, it's so much about culture, and that's what our program's kind of built on, is culture. And so the expectation at Fulton, the expectation, I guess, in this city, in our community is Fulton's supposed to win. And that all came about, about that time, 2012, you're 14-0 and you're state runner-up, and 2 or 3 weeks after the game, it starts to feel like, man, we were state runner-ups. That was pretty special. That was a great team. And then you win it in 13, you win it in 14, and then you go a year, you don't win it, and then you turn around and win it again, and so that kind of, we developed a culture and an expectation, and I don't think there's any coaches out there that want to work in a situation where there's no expectation. I mean, I want it to matter. I want it to matter to our people, our community, our fans, our school, our city, and most of all, our players. I want it to matter. And so there is expectation. I mean, people expect us to win, and so that helps drive you.
Nick, your final question for our special guest, Rob Black, Fulton High School football coach.
Yes. Their father, Bob Black, was also formerly head coach at Fulton High School. Which kind of reminds me a lot of Jeremy Pruitt and how his father is actually still in coaching down, and I believe at Dade County in Northwest Georgia. I'm just curious, what types of things did you learn from your father that help you in your coaching career today?
Well, I think the biggest thing is relationships. I mean, he has always just been very respected by all the guys that ever played for him, especially when you look back to the 70s and the 80s. I mean, he was a pretty hard coach back then, but I think the guys had such a relationship with him, and he was such a positive influence in their life, and they knew, even though he was on them or he was punishing them or whatever it was, that he really did care. And I think relationships matter so much. And so I think that was one of the biggest things I took away was just seeing how he cared for those guys. And, there's an old saying, I think it goes something like, guys don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And he obviously has cared for a long time, and that was one of my big takeaways from growing up under him.
Again, thank you so much, Mr. Black, for joining us. Special shout out to Russell Mays, who were able to connect us. He is the director of Fulton Radio, and he's probably listening, so big shout out to him. And I appreciate you coming to talk to us, and good luck on this upcoming 2020 season, because I bet it's going to be one of the most challenging ones of your career.
Yeah, no question. And thanks for having me in. Thanks for keeping sports alive, and thanks for talking high school football a little bit tonight.